Okay, the more we get to, okay, so now we'll look from Saturn out. And even from here, Saturn's the last planet where you can really see the effects of these outer planets in. But even then, it's a little obscure. You're seeing it because Saturn's your discipline, your link to your father, your sense of authority. And the outer planets, all the inner things are already functioning within Saturn. That's your main system. Saturn's really the friend or the limits of what you can control. But that can be boring sometimes. So Uranus is looking for excitement. So Uranus, when it hits Saturn, stressful aspects, it's going to make unconventional responsibility. What you want to work at with it is disciplined innovativeness. You're going to work hard to be innovative, to be unique, to get your own way of doing things. But more often than not, it's a rebellion or a shock, again, an instability around authority figures, parents. One parent may not be there. There's a shock or an instability with that. And with your sense of responsibility, why should I take that job? I'll break away. Why do I want? It weakens the discipline because Saturn wants to make long-term commitments and Uranus wants to break them up. So responsible independence or responsible freedom would be that aspect. But boy, freedom is a very difficult word because everyone thinks they're being free. I'm sure Trump thinks he's president. He can be free to do what he wants. Not everybody thinks that's the right way for freedom to work. So I just, you see other things, you see other associated things, you bring it to, but you're just looking at this aspect. You're looking at Saturn, responsibility, discipline, your ability to, Saturn's your ability to listen. It's your skin, it's your bones. So if you have weak bones or you have any kind of health condition, a lot of times your attitude to structure will be, Uranus will create, each of the other planets will weaken the bone structure a little bit. Saturn to Uranus makes it excitable and shocks up that defensiveness. It makes it less stable. The father, the discipline, your sense of authority, even your own discipline is going to, you can be less patient to imply discipline. Unless it's for a very unique thing, you normally would break away from any discipline being imposed on you. Of course, that's going to affect what kind of careers. It would make you hard to work with other people and easier to work on your own. But when you're working on your own, you may not grow as much as when you're working with other people. Whew. Okay, so Uranus shocks and excites the Saturn, trying to make it innovative. It's like the unions instead of the government. Still structure, but it adds this radical side to it. So the Uranus, the independent responsibility, trying to make it, take a job, be responsible in your own way, do things differently than your dad. Try to be innovative in any kind of things you do, but that can take away from being actually disciplined and consistent. Okay, when you take it to Neptune, Saturn, so often Uranus, Saturn would be maybe a parent's not there, they broke up. Neptune, Saturn is often there's a weak father. Neptune, Saturn, conjunct, square, opposition, there's often a weak father. At that time, Neptune hitting Saturn, responsibilities are weakened, authorities are weakened, governments are confused, there's weakened borders, there's vulnerabilities, so people aren't living up to the jobs they should be. They're either weak or evasive or fanatical or not seeing clearly something's not as it seems around authority, around father, around discipline. When you grow up with that, when you have Saturn, Neptune conjunct, square or opposed, you're going to have a weak sense of ambition. You're not going to want to have the straight job or that. You're going to say, yeah, you don't want to work that hard. And often it ends up being people end up going towards artistic things or things that aren't so demanding or aren't so much pressured in that way. Sometimes they'll come out as a commitment to social conscious things, but there's a disassociation around belief, vision, dreams, and what has to be done for them. I want to work for this dream, and like someone might want to work just for animals, someone might want to be dedicated in a certain way, and it's not what the parent wants. It can be that simple. But Neptune by itself tends to confuse and cloud the self-discipline. Why bother? We can make it fun. I got to do absolutely everything till you burn out. You're too extreme doing things, or more often it's weaker. Why bother? I don't believe in that. I'm not going to do that. Why make the effort? So it weakens the ambition. So you get someone that's got Pluto Saturn or Pluto Mars pushing to, and it's very ambitious. And if they marry someone that's just Saturn Neptune, they're not going to be ambitious. Whoa, there's a battle royale between the partner driving the other to be more ambitious and the other one not wanting to fit in. Again, we can go through this so many times, and every now and then, once every year anyways, or maybe every 6 months, you should go through just what we've done. Think of moon and just think what each of the aspects does and each layer does. Make your own poem, just make your associations through it, look at it, write it down, and go through each one like we have. And you're stretching it. As you stretch these associations, it's so useful for the natal chart character, but it also becomes very useful for improving the level of working with transits and progressions. So here, these associations, it's the magic of relationships. It's understanding these different textures and layers and how they fit to each other. Not to be afraid, it's tedious, but boy, the benefits of being lucid about them and being able to navigate through them is quite useful. It's useful. Normally it's just theory, but when you're doing astrology, you're working with people who are working with these and you're getting living experience about these factors. The person will define how it is more than the words will. So you can see something and you're looking to observe how it happens. With these outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, when they aspect each other, they're social generational factors. They're factors that affect a year or two. Everybody born within a year or two will have that aspect. But then it'll affect the individual planets, Moon, Mercury, Venus, in different ways for people born during those years. But when you're looking at generations, you look at Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and you see the main generational factors in these other planets that everyone born the same year would have at the same time, would have this basic attitude. Teachers see this, and they're teaching classes, all of a sudden they get a Saturn, Neptune class, and everybody's not got any discipline. Then they get through that, and they got to adjust to Saturn, Pluto classes or students. So we run into these very different ways. It's often very difficult to marry someone or be with someone that's the same age as you because you got the same generational weaknesses or vulnerabilities. And usually we get out of generation just to run into something that's processing a little differently. Okay, so Neptune weakens the Saturn, can fanaticize it, but usually it weakens it and makes it less accomplished. With that less accomplishment, boy, the understanding isn't getting the same discipline. The Jupiter won't understand Saturn so well, and it'll have a weaker guidance or an impaired guidance of Mars. And then the experiences we get will have an according result. Pluto to Saturn is the severe parent, the harsh parent. So Neptune is the missing one, or the confused one, or the drunken one, or the one the father is usually weak. Uranus is not there. Pluto is there's a harshness or a fear around one's parents. There's a fear around discipline. There's a harsh, I have to do this, or there's it can't be done. There's a battle around authority. Any one of these other planets, if you have it hitting your Saturn, you're going to have difficulty with people in authority. And Pluto will be, there'll be power struggles. And you're going to have that power struggle in yourself if you have that. You're going to have this harshness or fear around discipline. You either work too hard or not want to work at all, or be against the system, or it creates a harshness of what's really true around Saturn. If you run across injustice, Saturn Pluto would be fanatical. Neptune Saturn could be fanatical, but it's more likely to be self-righteous or sad. Uranus is going to be shocking, but Pluto is the confrontation. What's true, what's real. It adds a harshness to Saturn and a harshness to any of the discipline. So there's an inclination to make decisions that go to great extremes. I grew up with that. I grew up in a very abusive home situation, not fitting into schools, running into gangs, bullying, all this stuff. By the time I was a young man, nothing was working. I didn't fit in anywhere. And I ended up going to India and sitting in a cave for a year. It drove me to those extremes to come to terms with what's worth doing. There was a disassociation. So there can be a disassociation from these other planets, but it's the Saturn, which is hard to say. It affects the discipline, the self-discipline, the restraint, the relationship to authority. It can affect your bones or skin. So we'll see these more medically when we look at transits and you see things moving around. You can see the pressures building up, but you see these predispositions. They can be so many, each thing can be so many different. That's why I call it, each aspect is a yoga. It has its own puzzle. And you just got to get used to you don't try and read too much into these outer planets. It's how they gang up. Then if there's a difficult aspect between Saturn and any of the outer planets or the outer planets themselves, it's how they gang up and then what planet they hit in their chart. If there's a stress factor, it goes from they all gang up and hit that personal planet, and then you really see the behavioral factors very clearly. Whew, okay.